challenge for this game then, in the context that you've given it here, is that how do you build in a set of authority structures that can handle even a little extent of here's what I do as it strikes me thing, in a way that also doesn't leave people totally lost, who sit down and look at all the cards and go, okay, what can I do?
Right. The thing that's instructional.
Everything goes together.
That's instructional. Because remember, we've got several things at work here. One is, how does it go?
Mm-hmm.
Another is, how do I teach how it goes? Which is difficult because we're not teaching how to push a button and listen to music. We're teaching how to actually work an instrument, right?
So, and if I could pause, sorry, 1 second, just to that exact thing you're saying. And I am been totally 100% satisfied after I've watched a playtest of people who stumbled through the whole thing, got to the end. By the end, it kind of picked up, and then right as they got, they went, okay, I get it. I want to do this next time.
Right. I think that's totally exactly it. Yeah, because that's an important point. Learning curve is important. And the point is that if you want to try it again now, that's key. It's golden, really. The point here is that, no, it's not. If you have a game that delivers you the gold, all by itself, then you don't have a role-playing game. I mean, you're right, that people stumble through it, and they kind of flit in and out of a shared imagined space and whatever, people have a little trouble figuring out stuff. But at the end, they go, I get it. I think I get it, right? That last scene, we got it. We were all on it, I get this. I like the way you did that, right?
Which is how people learn board games anyway.
Yeah, of course.
You play it badly the first time, and now you're ready to go.
It's how you, exactly. And I think, and I've said for years that one of the problems with role-playing culture is that it doesn't respect the learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
It asks too much of a game because they say, well, it shouldn't have a learning curve. And then it asks too much of the people saying they shouldn't go through any either. So, yeah, I don't get it. Where my little mind is thinking about other games. One that I just posted about at Adept Play that I played recently for the first time in a while. It's called Zombie Cinema. Another Nordic game. Grossly out of print, sadly, because it's superior work.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. And again, okay, first of all, you'll be amused. It came out about 10 years ago, and it comes in a little VHS box. Right.
Nice.
Yeah. And but that's nice, because what's wrong with a VHS box, right? To pack and play, right? And so you pop it open, and you've got a little deck of cards. And they're used for character creation. They don't have any play your card aspect. Right. Sure. And then you've got your little bag of dice, because each person gets a bag of dice and a pawn, a die and a pawn, and they're the same color per person. And then you've got one turn token, and that's it. And then you've got this pamphlet thing, right? Your rule. Yeah, right. Just same thing we're talking about. Yeah. And then you've got your little board. And the board, you'll actually, I encourage you to look at the actual play. The presentation that I give, because I talk a lot about how seeing the board, putting pawns on the board, actually misleads people. They're too familiar with that act from other activities, and it's hard for them to not think that their point is to move their pawns around and reach the escape box and stuff like that. But that's okay. But the point I'm trying to get at is that if you do understand the rules, and one thing that people screw up, in fact, somebody really liked my post about it, shared it on Facebook, and made the, I would say error of calling it and said, hey, this is a great cooperative storytelling game. No,
cooperative storytelling game?
Yeah, it's not cooperative storytelling game. There is no agreement or consensus in those rules at all. There is absolutely no point where things happen because people agree to it. That's not a determining factor of the events of play. And so the stereotype of cooperative storytelling is that everybody sits down and kind of decides which way they want the story to go and make a case for it, and debate a little bit about it maybe, or, get excited and everybody just feels it and goes with it maybe or something. And it's a beautiful ideal, but it's crap. It doesn't work.
Has there ever been an actual game like that?
Yeah, there have been a number of role-playing games that took that more or less as their ideal, and there are some that are very dice-heavy that rely on that thinking, even though they have lots of rolling in them. And I would even go so far as to say that Fate is more of such a game than it is any kind of resolution-based phenomenon.
I agree.
So what I'm going to say is that you have admirably avoided that, and so did Zombie Cinema. The point is that you have knowledge of who talks about what, and also who kind of has the gavel at any moment. Who's like, well, can I, he says, well, I'm going to, he's over there by the coffee maker, so I'm going to do this. And the guy's like, hold on, no, he's not by the coffee maker. But I thought he was. I know you thought. He's not. And that person's job is partly to say that stuff. And they just do. As long as somebody can say that stuff on whatever basis, then play can proceed. You can't have people proposing their options at the same time that they're proposing the conditions under which those options are possible or how hard. It can't happen. And so the separation of that, crisscrossing by person is written into your game and will be very nice, is what I'm saying. That's why you haven't seen the fiction breakdown in your playtests.
Right.
Right, that's why. And that's good. Because most games that purport to do what you're talking about break down in their basic fictional warp and woof because of that. They're too cooperative. They're too consensual. They're too committee. Right. Right. So anyway, so those are some things that I just wanted to point out there. Zombie Cinema is a good example. I have never played. I think I even tried to play a long time ago. Misery Bubblegum by Tony Luerbash, which also was a deck of cards. Yeah, it was a deck of cards. Yeah. And its whole goal was to have exactly this kind of pick up and play introduction to role playing. The cards will help, the cards will guide, the cards will show options and stuff, but we are going to play a role playing game here. Right. And so I'm throwing out these titles because they're worth considering. Most of the other Forge stuff was more like books. Right? Yes. So I won't go into those. But there are a few other little boxies that I could talk about. But you will. The reason I'm saying it's a hard road is, first of all, because of the coding mentality. Second, because of the tendency of people when they see a box with pawns and cards and stuff. It's really hard to escape the long-standing cultural tradition of what these things mean in terms of agenda.
Yeah. So we were putting things on cards and not having pawns or anything like that. The game doesn't need pawns. But,
right, I know. But you see what I mean.
The thing that I understand what you mean. Maybe this will interest you. Jan's latest idea for layout was actually just to have little playbooks that are essentially all the cards together, and then as a group we turn the page, act one, and then you turn the page. Now we'll follow the steps, and that might help with the teaching process. Right. But I'm sure, I know Vincent and Meg did playbooks with different kinds of books. I don't know the extent to which that's, or what it even does really. For
playbook in the Apocalypse World sense simply means that the player doesn't have to ever reference the rulebook. That you basically have a multi-page character sheet that has your character's stuff on it. Since they have a very strong character class system in that game, by another name, but they're character classes. And so therefore they're customized to their character class. You don't have to worry about you don't have blank spots for what the other guys can do. And
I meant more things more like Murderous Ghosts.
Right. Murderous Ghosts is a pretty good example of the kind of thing we're talking about. And I actually regard it extremely highly. I think it's an exceptional game. Although it is kind of interesting to watch it being played, and I saw a good example not that long ago where, again, the authorities were squirrely that the person who was playing the game, one of the people playing the game, did not have the authority over the actual situation, and yet kept talking and doing things, objecting, and, re-skinning what was happening repeatedly in order to be able to do what they wanted, or for that not to happen to them, and stuff like that. So if anything, without using the word authority, in zombie cinema, they call it the call. Someone has a particular person, the person holding that red chip has the call. Whenever there's any ambiguity or just they maintain a personal image of what's happening. And whenever things stray off of that image, they bring it back and say, no, this is the way it's going. This is where the hawk is. This is where, the zombie was coming up through the floorboards. The zombie was not coming in through the window. You seem to be fixated on it coming through the window, but it's not. Stuff like that. So the notion that somebody has the call is the term they use in zombie cinema. There are other terms that different of these games use, but I think that's an important consideration. It also actually makes people happier when they play, to know that somebody's got everybody's back in terms of who's where and what's going on.
Right. Because then you can try to be creative and push the limits, and it's not going to break the system.
Right, exactly. And somebody's thinking about this. It also is nice to have that reside in a person, because it means that we all have our own zone of authoritative input. We all have our own zone of saying what happens. You may say whether the fireplace poker, is available to me in a hasty grab or not. But I do get to say, even if it's not there on my card, what my guy does. And if it's not on my card, you're going to tell me how the roll is constructed. And the rules are robust. They will come up with some construction for it. So anyway, though, I think we're starting to kind of repeat ourselves a little bit, but in thinking of these games like Murderous Ghost, Zombie Cinema, if you can ever get a copy, I recommend it. And Montsegur is very good. I'm pretty sure it's still available, actually. I'm curious, ultimately, to know when and if a sense of non-thespian resolve about what your character does. See, thespian means you display what what everyone knows, or you have written about what the character's like, right? You display it. But I'm talking about a non-thespian resolve, when you're like, no, that's not going to happen. And you experience that with Cold Soldier, I believe.
Yes.
The bits where you're like, hold the phone, No, we're doing
think
that.
About that game.
Yeah,
it was so powerful.
Yeah, we are not going to let that happen. And I know that it may go against me. I know that I'm sacrificing my end game, when I do this. We actually didn't do some of the cards right in Cold Soldier, so it was easier for you to get a better hand at the end. But that doesn't matter. The resolve was there. You would have done that anyway, even if you did sacrifice some of your cherished endgame cards that you were hoarding. For sort of the next standard is, if the game is doing that, when do you see somebody buckle down and say, well, I'm playing Morgana. And Morgana, she's jumping this way. She's jumping this way, and I mean it. I mean, me, the person sitting here, I mean it. She is. And that, I think, is something that is worth thinking about for this game. And I'm going to suggest that it, too, is not an advanced technique. And that it is the difference between medium and content. Right? You've got your medium and the idiom with the Arthurian thing going on. Now, what about the content of play in terms of a fiction that we generated ourselves? And it mattered that it was me in this chair and no one else when I was playing Morgana. And so that is something that's worth thinking about. Where is there an edge to this that keeps it away from being the abstraction of, well, let's see how Arthur works out this time?
And that's what the game is missing, and consequently why I just was like, there's no bangs. Nothing happened. I mean, well, everything happens.
It may or may not be a bang. It may or may not be a... You know what? It is a bang. It is a bang. You're right. It's because what you do is wide open, and what you do is utterly personally driven, and the content of what happened is too much to ignore in fictional terms. So that's worth thinking about. The trouble is that anything in fiction has been drained of that content in the course of time. I mean, even murders and murder mysteries have no particular... Who gives a shit about the guy who gets killed in an Agatha Christie murder mystery, right?
Sure.
He's there to provide a corpse. I came for the corpse. We came for the mystery. Without a corpse, no mystery.
Sure.
You know, if nobody dies by the end of the first chapter, I'm like, come on, hurry it up. Drop dead already. And so the point is that there's something about when and how something occurs that really isn't like that. It isn't drained.